documents. I did, and all of a sudden, within a couple of days, I had it all set.
This is how easy they are to work with, always looking for ways to help you and your family. You can find out more on the UCCU mobile banking app or just go to uccu.com/transfer. Utah Community Credit Union. You're going to love where you bank.
Your little one deserves a big welcome. From before the baby bump to baby in your arms, Common Spirit Health OBGYN physicians and certified nurse midwives are here for the labor, the love, and every moment in between. We specialize in prenatal, pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum care to help you navigate this journey with confidence and joy. So when the big moment arrives, you can welcome baby with the warmest hello of all. Hello, human kindness. mountain.commonspirit.org.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
At the Utah Auto Expo, we have a vehicle for almost everything. Boat hauling, budget loving, serious work, kid hauling, adventure seeking. Heck, we have a whole section for adventure seekers called Adventure Utah. The Auto Expo has a vast selection of vehicles from different manufacturers all in one place. It's a great place to comparative shop. We have a vehicle for almost everything, and we certainly have a vehicle for your thing. The Utah Auto Expo, Mountain America Expo Center, January 17th through the 20th. Plenty of free parking for your current car. Go to AutoExpoUtah.com for tickets.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese.
A good-looking drive on the Valley Freeways. Salt Lake City PD wrapping up a crash at 3rd West and 1100 South. Keep that big event energy big. Take UTA and skip the parking lot. Plan your trip at rideuta.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The high today is expected to hit 39 degrees before we get into the low 40s for Thursday, Friday. Then come Saturday, we could see a chance of showers and a drop into freezing temperatures for the weekend. Right now, it's partly cloudy and 37 degrees. I'm Heather Peterson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
And welcome to another edition of Inside Sources. I'm your host this afternoon, Greg Skordas, and I'm alongside Rusty Cannon. It's good to be with you again. I haven't seen you for a little while.
Yeah, it's been some time. This is going to be a good day. We've got a lot going on.
We've got a lot going on. We've got a lot going on in our state. We're, 5 days away from the legislative session beginning?
Yep.
We've got a lot going on nationally. We've got a president who's going to be inaugurated about the same time. We've got, I think, 3 Senate committee meetings going on for confirmations. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about locally. But let's start with what's happening internationally, Rusty, because I think this is pretty big news. A 6-week ceasefire agreement has been reached between Israel and Hamas. It comes 15 months after the October 7th attack from Hamas on southern Israel. And here's what President Biden, at least, is saying about it right now.
All told, these developments in the region, which the United States helped to shape, changed the equation. And so now, the terror network that once protected and sustained Hamas is far weaker. Iran is weaker. Iran is weaker than it's been in decades. Hezbollah is badly degraded. And after more than 15 months of war, Hamas's senior leaders are dead. Thousands of Hamas fighters are dead. And the military formations have been destroyed.
This comes, like I said, Rusty, 15 months after the attack occurred. It comes 1 or 2 days after President-elect Trump said they better settle this or all hell is going to break out,
yeah,
I think is what he said, which may have been some motivation for getting this done. I see on the TV Biden alongside Vice President Kamala Harris, his Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, sort of standing there as though they had accomplished something. Trump on his Truth Social has said, thank you, or,
he took credit as well.
And he probably should have, because I don't think it's a coincidence, maybe I'm wrong, that this got settled in the hours, really the 11th hour before Trump takes office.
Yeah, and I will probably show my partisan colors here, but I just my firm opinion, there is absolutely a reason this is happening now. This deal is set to go into effect on the 19th. The 19th is Sunday. The inauguration is on Monday. As you mentioned, what incoming President Trump has said, you match that up against what's gone on for the last 15 months. I'm not surprised this is happening right now. However, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this, as I'm looking at this, I think this is on shaky ground. And I don't want to be too negative here, but we'll go through there's 3 phases.
Yeah, let's talk about those.
Yeah, so phase 1 would begin on the 19th, and that would begin with the release of 33 hostages over a 6-week period, including women, children, and older adults and wounded civilians, in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian women and children that are in prison in Israel. Among the 33 would be 5 female Israeli soldiers, each to be released in exchange for 50 Palestinian prisoners, including 30 militants who are serving life sentences. Israeli officials said that they are assuming most of these 33 are alive. And during this phase, so that's phase 1. But here's the key. Details of the second phase still must be, and this is according to the AP, must be negotiated during the first. And those details remain difficult to resolve, according to them. The deal does not include written guarantees that the ceasefire will continue until a deal is reached. That means Israel could resume its military campaign after the first phase ends. So, as I mentioned, I am worried this does not go past the first phase.
Yeah, let's hear what Biden said about the ceasefire, though, as it relates to the first phase.
When phase 2 begins, there will be an exchange for release of the remaining living hostages, including male soldiers, and all remaining Israeli forces will be withdrawn from Gaza.
Okay, that's the part that troubles me a little bit, in terms of not necessarily troubling in terms of an ideal, but is Israel really going to withdraw from Gaza? I mean, do you see that happening?
I don't. That's the part that I'm hung up on.
And if so, what's in it for them?
Yeah, that's what as we were talking about this. And the details that are literally emerging as we speak, I don't believe Israel will ever leave the Gaza Strip at this point. Why would they? You look at any case or any situation, they would give up all of their leverage, all of their ability to police it, to prevent another October from happening. I don't see how they would ever consider in any way completely leaving the Gaza Strip, because all you're doing is making that ground go back to possibly fertile ground to birth what came out of it last time. I don't believe it. I don't think they will ever leave it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too negative. But my understanding that is not something that Israel will ever agree to do.
It's also interesting that Biden talked about whether or not and to what extent the incoming administration had to do with the timing of this.
This deal was developed and negotiated under my administration, but its terms will be implemented, for the most part, by the next administration. In these past few days, we've been speaking as one team. This has been time of real turmoil in the Middle East. But as I prepare to leave office, our friends are strong, our enemies are weak, and there's genuine opportunities for a new future.
I think that's heartening to hear. I mean, It's nice to hear that, hey, when we're talking about serious stuff, we're both on the phone, so to speak, working away. Obviously, they're both going to take credit for this, and it might be a bit of a contest as to, who is winning that battle, as wrong as it is to talk about it that way. But as he said, we were one voice here, and that's good. I think President Trump does not like these kinds of things to continue. As he said before, he wants it over. I think he said that about Ukraine as well. It's like, it just needs to stop. Everybody needs to stop. And I think so I think he would see this favorably, although, and I think in the long run, it doesn't matter, whose watch was it on, that it was done on Wednesday before he was inaugurated. I think both can take credit for it, and that's just fine.
Yeah, and also, you brought up a great point, Rusty, and that is that maybe a little bit shaky moving between phase 1 and phase 2 if that's the case, what happens to the ceasefire? Where here's what Biden said about the ceasefire as it relates to phase 1 moving to phase 2.
There are a number of details to negotiate to move from phase 1 to phase 2, but the plan says if negotiations take longer than 6 weeks, the ceasefire will continue as long as the negotiations continue.
See, I can't imagine that it will be as long as the negotiations continue. And there's got to be a drop dead. You would expect one side or the other to say, okay, negotiations are continuing, but they're not getting anywhere. Let's move forward with something else. And we haven't even talked about phase 3 yet, because phase 1 could take a while. Phase 3 involves the bodies of the remaining hostages being returned based on what they're calling a 3 to 5 year reconstruction plan for Gaza, under international supervision, whatever that means. I mean, there's got to be a tremendous amount of reconstruction in that area because of all the damage that's been done.
Oh, yeah. There'll be the years and years of reconstruction, which you would hope gets started in earnest. It also talks about aid going in phase 1, which is good. They don't talk necessarily about who is stopping that aid from going in now. It is not who you might think it is. But I'm hopeful this works out. I worry that as they get to the end of the first phase and try to go to the second, that it just falls apart. As I said, I don't think Israel ever has a situation where they completely withdraw from Gaza, but I could be wrong. Maybe I just don't understand, what's going on over there at this point.
What do you? We've only got about 30 seconds left, but what do you think Netanyahu's position with his constituents, with his country is right now, with respect to this deal? Do you think it's favorable for him?
I think so. I mean, I don't see why Israelis wouldn't want this to end. They have pressure on the north and the south, right? We're not at all talking about in this segment all that has gone on or will go on the north. This is in the south. I would assume that they want this to be over as well. Their kids are there fighting day in and day out, and I'm sure they want them to come home.
Hopeful information. Hopefully the administration, outgoing and ingoing, will keep this going. And let's talk about what's happening nationally. Let's talk about some of Trump's cabinet nominees. It's been a very interesting series of confirmation hearings going on over the last few days. We'll break that down after the break.
The newest part of your morning, and still so familiar.
When you wake up and listen to a radio show, it's like you're a part of a family. You're listening in on people you know, and it's magnificent that Andy Farnsworth is sitting in the chair because he's someone we know.
Utah's Morning News. Andy Farnsworth joins Amanda Dixon to bring you important news in the car. 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
If you're trying to decide which gutter protection to put on your home, don't just ask how they'll handle leaves. Ask how they'll handle ice. Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors, and that's right, ice. See, plenty of gutter guards are good at keeping out leaves, but most are made with flimsy materials that can bend, buckle, and break under the weight of too much ice. Kind of a big problem in an icy state like Utah, right? At RGS Exteriors, our exclusive gutter protection systems are built Utah tough. They're made with premium strength materials that hold up to 1,200 pounds of ice per square foot. Simply put, they're not going to budge. Our gutter guards are also certified to handle hurricane-level winds and rain. Mother Nature can't damage them. Guaranteed. Utah Tough Products. That's the RGS way. For a free estimate, call 801-280-3110 or visit rgsexteriors.com. That's rgsexteriors.com or 801-280-3110.
Our military faces a crisis. Recruitment down. Morale weak. Our leaders more focused on going woke than killing terrorists and defending America. President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense to change things. Hegseth isn't an insider or a swamp dweller. He's a decorated veteran of the United States Army who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. And he's exactly who we need leading the Department of Defense. Hegseth will ban woke nonsense from our armed forces, strengthen our military, and make our soldiers proud to serve. Call your United States Senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them stand with Trump. Confirm Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Again, call your senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth and make our military great again. Paid for by American Leadership PAC.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part? They accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right, so we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Have you heard about the huge clearance sale at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo through the 21st? Amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Save 50% and more with a 2-year guarantee and free classes on these previously loved machines.
The Bernina 735 is discounted and includes thousands of dollars of free accessories while supplies last.
Save hundreds to thousands of dollars on the Bernina 435, 535, and 735 machines. Ask about our 0% interest financing.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
Specially priced and receive over $2,000 worth of free Bernina accessories, 25% off Bernina walking feet. And we have a great price and limited supply of the Bernina 770 Cafe machine.
It's time to buy a better machine and get a Bernina.
Don't miss this January clearance sale.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Dave and Dujanovic.
If you're driving to work or you're driving the kids to a soccer game, we're your in-car companions.
People will come up to me and say, "Oh, I talk to you every day. You don't realize it because I'm talking at the radio, but I talk to you every day."
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. All right, Greg, it is a busy day in the United States Capitol. President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees continue to take part in Senate confirmation hearings today. We're talking about Chris Wright at the Department of Energy, Pam Bondi as Attorney General, and Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. So we have a real treat this segment. We have Utah's senior senator, Senator Mike Lee, who now chairs, and this is really neat to announce, chairs the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He's joining us on Inside Sources to share all that's going on today. Thank you for coming, Senator Lee.
You bet. It's good to be with you.
So a busy, busy day. I'd love for you to just tell the listeners about all that's been going on today, because you have been running all over the place.
Yeah, so we had our hearing with Chris Wright. This is my first hearing as the chairman of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. And we held a hearing today for the confirmation to address the nomination of Chris Wright to be the Secretary of Energy. Mr. Wright is a longtime businessman with experience in the energy field. He knows more about energy than perhaps any other human I've ever met, and just did a phenomenal job fielding questions across the political spectrum on both sides of the aisle on more issues than I can even count in my mind at the moment, and did a phenomenal job. I predict that he's going to be confirmed overwhelmingly.
Senator Lee, we heard Pete Hegseth yesterday being grilled for several hours, Marco Rubio a little bit today, Pam Bondi, as Rusty said, some people that have a little bit of controversy. It seems like Chris Wright's nomination doesn't seem to have that level of controversy, and we don't know much about him. You just told me more than I knew already. But that one seems, Senator, to be one that's probably going to go through fairly comfortably.
I think that's right. That's a fair assessment, Greg. And what we're seeing is some of these folks are not controversial at all. I certainly put Chris Wright in that category. We're going to hold our next hearing tomorrow in the Energy and Natural Resources Committee on Governor Doug Burgum, who's been nominated to serve as the Secretary of the Interior. It's an especially important position for Utah, as the federal government owns 2/3 of the land in our state, about 67%. And most of that is under the control of the U.S. Department of the Interior. They also control a lot of our energy resources and things like the Endangered Species Act, all sorts of things that affect Utahns every day. But yeah, you're right. There are some of these nominees, like Chris Wright and like Doug Burgum, who are less controversial. But I also serve on the Judiciary Committee and had the opportunity twice to question Pam Bondi in that capacity today. She's holding her own remarkably well. And I'm now back on the Foreign Relations Committee and just came a few minutes ago from that committee where I had the opportunity to question my friend and longtime colleague, Senator Marco Rubio. I expect also that he will be confirmed overwhelmingly, if not unanimously, within the Senate. That's unusual, but it's well-deserved in the case of Marco Rubio. He's developed a lot of friendships, a lot of goodwill among our colleagues who understand that whether they agree with him or not on a particular issue, they respect his judgment and know that he'll be an outstanding Secretary of State.
You know, if I think of one that I would call a slam dunk of a nomination, I think it would be Marco Rubio for sure. Tell us a little bit about Pam Bondi's hearing. Obviously, the AG has been an area that's, drawn a little bit more ire, I'd say, or a lot more intense scrutiny. It sounds like her hearing, there's the back and forth, but it sounds like she did quite well, and I assume you don't see any issues with her being confirmed.
Yeah, she's going to be confirmed. No, I was in and out of all three of these hearings today. I felt like a ping pong ball. Sometimes that happens, especially at the beginning of an administration where you've got to get it staffed up and you have a lot of hearings occurring simultaneously. But from everything I've seen, both when I was in the room and what I've seen that took place when I was in another committee, Pam Bondi handled these questions really well. I talked to her about a couple of issues that are important to me, including Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, Section 702, the need to protect the American people from warrantless surveillance under 702. I'm especially concerned about the sort of backdoor warrantless surveillance that occurs through the so-called incidental collection under FISA 702. I also talked to her about my efforts on criminal justice reform and the fact that I worked with, initially it was me and a bunch of Democrats, but eventually it became an overwhelming bipartisan supermajority, 87 votes with which we passed the First Step Act. As the Attorney General, if she's confirmed to that position, she'll be in charge of, among other things, the Bureau of Prisons. And I asked for her help in continuing to implement the First Step Act and in helping us to enact more reforms in that area, including things that will just help make the federal system work better and give our prisoners access to more of the treatment that they need, more of the tools that they need to avoid recidivism once they're released from prison.
Senator Lee, it's interesting you mentioned Pam Bondi is holding her own remarkably well. And I sat in this chair yesterday for a couple of hours while Pete Hegseth was being grilled. And you and I, Senator, are lawyers, and we've seen people on the stand. And I have to say, as an attorney, and I was telling Rusty this before we started, if Pete Hegseth is my witness and I'm in trial, I won. I mean, he was so polished. He was so good. And I didn't even hear him. I couldn't even hear much of what he was saying. But boy, he had a great presence. I mean, he's got to be, I think the Republicans have to be pretty pleased with his performance yesterday.
Now, you're exactly right. You nailed it. And Greg, I've seen you in court. I've seen you in trial, and you know what you're talking about because that is exactly the kind of witness you want. He came under a lot of pressure, and from what I was able to see, I don't serve on the Armed Services Committee, but from what I was able to observe from afar, he never once broke a sweat. He never once broke character. He was at times firm and impassioned, but he didn't let them get under his skin. And I think he acquitted himself remarkably well and expect he will be confirmed as well.
So speaking of other confirmations, Senator, any issues with the others? I know one name that's come up lately, Tulsi Gabbard. Would you like to share an opinion on any of these others?
I'm a big fan of Tulsi Gabbard's. Was pleased to host her when she came to Utah a couple of years ago, and she came out and campaigned with me for a day or two. She and I have worked together on a number of occasions, including when she was in Congress. We teamed up on some religious liberty issues that we have in common. We also have a lot of the same concerns that I've expressed elsewhere about FISA Section 702. I know that some of my colleagues have expressed some uncertainty as to where they stand with her. I'm confident that once she goes through the committee process, she will be confirmed as well. She's a terrific talent, and I think the country would be very fortunate to have her in that position.
Senator Lee, back to Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary nominee. Is the committee finished with that confirmation with those hearings? Is his name going to be sent on to the Senate? I'm not sure exactly if I'm using the verbiage exactly right, but did he get through everything you expected him to, or is there going to be more with him?
Yeah, so he got through his hearing. Now that once the hearing is concluded, we will, within a matter of days, be setting up what's called a markup, which is a different kind of hearing where we actually vote in committee on moving the nominee forward. And so within the next few days, we'll convene again on the committee, hold the markup, have the vote, and then if everything goes according to my not only my hope but my strong expectation, he'll be reported out of committee favorably, and then we'll be able to move him for a vote on the Senate floor in a matter of days after that.
So it's fun to hear you speaking as a chair of a committee, and I do want to mention this, Senator, for those listening, how important it is for Utah to have a senator chairing a committee. And this is a committee that is very applicable and important to Utah. Can you comment on that just briefly on what it really means?
Yeah, this committee is important to me. It's one of the reasons why I picked it among my very first picks when I got here 14 years ago. I knew then, as I know now, that 67% of the state of Utah is controlled by the federal government. It's owned by the federal government. And as a result, we find ourselves beholden to federal bureaucrats operating thousands of miles from our home. They make decisions every single day that affect how Utahns live, affect their ability to access the things that they need, whether it's for work, for recreation, for energy and mineral development, conservation, whatever it is. They need permission from the federal government to do all sorts of things that in other states people take for granted, that in other states are pretty easy to do, because in most states the federal government owns a percentage of land that can be reckoned in the low single digits. Not so in our state, and so that's one of the reasons why this committee is so important to Utahns, because it oversees those parts of the federal government that own the most land and own most of our state. It's a real privilege and honor to have been elected as the chairman of that committee.
All right, Senator Lee, Utah's senior senator, thank you for joining the show today. Always a pleasure. Hope to have you back on soon. When Inside Sources returns, we're going to come back to Utah and discuss some election-related bills coming up in this legislative session. We'll be right back.
How does a soccer club born in an unlikely place,
Utah? You sure you want to do that in Utah?
built with players no one else wanted,
We knew no one believed in us.
reach the league's highest heights?
We finally did it. It was like just this feeling of getting to the top of the mountain.
How does that same team find a way to shatter expectations in the midst of a fight for its own survival?
Our club is burning to the ground as we speak.
I'm Amy Donaldson, and in a new podcast, Making of a Moment, the RSL story, we take a closer look at one of those iconic sports moments
Soccer is a crazy game, and we saw it firsthand tonight.
and unravel how knowing the truth of these moments can transform what they mean.
I just kind of got chills right now thinking about it.
Making of a Moment, the RSL story, is available now. Follow us at makingamomentpod.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
$182,000. According to CBS News, Americans lose out on an average of $182,000 in Social Security income because they file for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits with a free Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions. This free analysis pinpoints the optimal time to file for Social Security while considering the impact on your taxes, IRA and 401k withdrawals, and Medicare premiums. If you've saved more than $200,000 and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. Discover how you could wring every nickel out of your Social Security benefits. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors.
Good afternoon. It's 1:32 at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shilaos. KSL's top story. Utah had one of its hottest years ever in 2024. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
On average, the state was about 3 degrees warmer than usual. That trend was reflected across the state all year, with Utah having its warmest fall ever. National Weather Service meteorologist Julie Cunningham took a look at temperatures from the Salt Lake City International Airport.
Our mean average temperature this year was 57.4 degrees Fahrenheit. This was the warmest on record, beating the previous record in 2012 of 56.6 Fahrenheit.
Cunningham says even though the year seemed really dry, rain and snow totals weren't far from what is considered normal. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story. Hamas says a last-minute dispute in ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas has been resolved. Israel announced that Hamas has tried to change agreed-upon understandings for security arrangements along Gaza's border with Egypt. It strongly rejected the proposals. AP reports Qatar's prime minister met separately with Hamas and Israeli delegations, and shortly afterwards, the dispute was resolved. Taking a look at your money at this moment, it's been a great day for the markets. The Dow now up by 768 points. It sits at 43,285. The NASDAQ, though, it's up 2.5%, up nearly 500 points. Coming up, enjoy a little warmer temperatures. We'll check the forecast coming up next. KSL News Time, 1:34.
Things are just better with a partner or a friend. And when it comes to losing weight, Soda Weight Loss makes it easier than ever to let go of the weight for good.
I'd been wanting to lose weight, and I tried on my own. I'd been seeing things for soda, and so we talked to the nutritionist and loved every bit of it. You know, I couldn't be happier, honestly, with the result.
Join with a partner and only pay for one. Imagine achieving all your weight loss goals together with your partner, and you only pay for one.
I've let go 50 pounds, and I don't have the cravings that I used to have.
I would definitely recommend soda. It's because it works. I even recommended it to my daughter, and she's on her journey now.
Just go and look at the almost 9,000 Google reviews about soda weight loss. Lose the weight without injections, without medications, without hunger. Get started now at sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com. Soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
Sometimes when our furnace stops working, it's something simple we can fix ourselves, if we only knew how. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the next time your furnace stops working, before you call a company out to fix it, try this first. Go shut the furnace down and make sure your air filter is clean. Go around the house and make sure the vents are open and there's nothing blocking the return airs. If it's been a while since you've changed the batteries in your thermostat, go ahead and do that too. Then go turn the furnace back on, and if it stays on, you're probably good. If it stops working again, you're probably going to want a technician to check it out. If you don't know one, Any Hour Services has a special offer for any homeowners listening. One of our HVAC technicians will diagnose and troubleshoot your furnace for only $29. Then they'll explain what they found and present you with repair options. And don't worry, our technicians service all brands. Call Any Hour Services and let them know you heard about this $29 troubleshooting special on the radio. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. And Ricky Meese, what's happening on the roads?
We do have the cleanup of a crash in Tooele County. This is 10th North at about 6th West. Those vehicles are out of traffic on the shoulder. A little bit of busy traffic southbound I-15 at the South Interchange. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Warmer days for the next couple of days. The high over 40 degrees, but then we're back into the low 30s after that. A 30% chance of showers on Saturday. Right now, 37 degrees, sunny skies in downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Maria Shilaos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
You're back with us on Inside Sources. I'm Greg Skordas alongside Rusty Cannon. And Rusty, Utah's legislative session kicks off on Tuesday. One big focus, and this is something that I'm particularly interested in, is legislation that we're hearing about regarding election reform. To me, we do a pretty good job in Utah, but there's always room for improvement and always room for reform. We've had some audits done that say there's areas to fix and areas to work on, rather. We have with us, luckily, State Representative Jefferson Burton to talk to us about that. Representative Burton, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen. Good to be with you.
And talk to us, if you will, sort of maybe with a more broad brush, where the legislature is looking right now as it relates to elections.
Yeah, we have a myriad bills coming out. All of them are not numbered yet. Obviously, we're early in, but we do know that many of our body have bills centered around elections. Now, that's not something new. We have that almost every year, but every session. But maybe a little bit more intensity because of the past election.
So, Representative, I have a question. This is Rusty. I have a question for you. A lot of talk over, I want to call it the interim, but over the summer, spring, summer, fall, was on voting by mail in this last election. Or in your opinion, do you think there will be bills or tweaks made to how vote by mail works in Utah? Because this is a bit of a hot topic.
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking it. Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are several bills that currently look at voting by mail. It's clear that most Utahns like the voting by mail system, and we don't want to be tone deaf to our voters. And so many surveys and polls have been conducted really since 2016 about voting by mail. Some of the concerns that have popped up are maybe a better way to check identification of voters who are voting by mail, maybe a methodology to do that. And then other concerns that have popped up recently with that past election were votes that didn't get counted because they ended up in a out-of-state post office. I think you gentlemen are tracking that.
Yes.
And how do we fix that? And so one bill would look at voting by mail to continue, i.e. you'd receive your ballot the same way you do now. You'd be able to have that in your kitchen and talk around the table for several days, as my wife and I like to do. And then when you made your decision, though, to make the elections on your ballot, then when you sealed it, you would be required to take it to a local polling station and turn it in, and at which time you'd present your identification. That solves a couple of problems. It takes the Postal Service out of the back end of the mailing equation, and then it also requires you to show a picture ID to vote, which many voters have given us feedback saying that they would prefer something like that to happen.
Representative Burton, another issue that came up quite a bit at the last election, and it followed a lot of the Republican primaries and conventions, I should say, not the primary, was the route to the ballot, the primary ballot via signature gathering, and the route via the convention or caucus process. Is there going to be a change in that?
Yeah, some representatives, we have talked to several that have some thoughts and ideas surrounding the caucus system. There have been suggestions that perhaps we institute runoff elections as a methodology. We both know, we all know that the signature gathering process is cumbersome, and we've had some problems with it. And so I think you folks spoke to Representative Ray Ward that wants to drop the signature threshold. Others have talked about using runoff elections as a means to kind of change the way we do the caucus system. But again, those bills, most of them haven't been numbered yet, but there's been discussion around methodologies to change that process. Obviously, the caucus system should replicate the citizens it represents. And I think in this past election, when we saw what happened at the caucus versus what happened at the ballot box, there was a stark difference in what happened there. So these discussions will continue, and I think you will see some legislation surrounding that.
So, Representative, as you know, I'm sure you know this intimately, anytime we get into the conversation of changing the caucus convention system, versus signatures and all. A lot of hairs on the backs of necks start to raise in certain corners of the state, and everybody gets quite nervous. If I understand you correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there wouldn't be major changes to that system. You're talking about maybe changing the number of signatures or the timeline to turn them in. Am I summarizing that in the right way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously the signature gathering issue has been in the news, and so voters are very aware of that. Anytime you have a system where you're paying folks to collect signatures, you run the risk of having some fraudulent behavior, and so we're trying to find ways to reduce or eliminate that kind of behavior. But additionally, there are discussions surrounding the caucus system. I will point out that everything would be done in conjunction with the parties. But those discussions are pending, and people have been concerned about how that system works or doesn't work. And again, this is what we do. I mean, we strive to be in touch with voters and to understand, what their concerns are. And I certainly understand folks being concerned about recommended changes to the caucus system. I don't know of any bills to change the caucus system specifically, other than we have discussed instituting runoff elections as a way to maybe do that.
That was Representative Jefferson Burton. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And Rusty, when we come back after the break, let's stay on legislation, let's stay on elections, and let's talk about fundraising when we come back.
Now is the time to enjoy a new dream home for $399,900. Fieldstone Homes has the best value in Eagle Mountain. And now is the time to check out Cedar Grove and Antelope Meadows. These homes stand out with open floor plans, 2-story great rooms, large yards, James Hardy exteriors, and room to grow with unfinished basements. Enjoy the exclusive amenities, including a pool, clubhouse, and parks. They are gorgeous. If you've started your home search or are about to, you need to stop by our 4 model homes. Experience the value. Come see what Fieldstone Homes has to offer this Saturday, January 18th at Cedar Grove and Antelope Meadows in Eagle Mountain for free food and giveaways. When it comes to quality, value, and the best overall new home solutions, look to Fieldstone Homes this Saturday at Cedar Grove and Antelope Meadows in Eagle Mountain. Visit fieldstonehomes.com. Fieldstone Homes. It's time.
Mornings can start feeling the same. Wake up, brush teeth, go to work. But with breakfast from Wendy's, it's like, wake up, brush teeth, Baconate with a breakfast Baconator. Roll with the sausage breakfast burrito. Buddy it up with a honey buddy. Or get seasoned with seasoned potatoes. And then go to work. Sorry. When you're ready for a fresh wake-up call, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
Febreze.
So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. VapoStick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Experience the true value of clean with Zero-Res, where your carpets are transformed without harsh chemicals or detergents. Zero-Res's patented technology ensures your carpets stay cleaner longer, making it safe for both the kids and pets. Unlike traditional cleaners, Zero-Res leaves your carpets dry in hours, not days. Plus, enjoy peace of mind with the Zero-Res Gotta Love It guarantee. If you're not satisfied, Zero-Res will re-clean for free within 30 days. Right now, get an amazing deal. Have 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $109, and Zero-Res will clean a hallway for free when you mention KSL News Radio. But that's not all. Zero-Res offers a wide range of cleaning services, from air ducts to upholstery, ensuring every corner of your home shines. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Call today and experience the Zero-Res difference. Book your appointment now and let Zero-Res bring cleanliness to a whole new level. Call 866-ZERO-RES or go online to ZeroRes.com to schedule your appointment today with Zero-Res.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? It seems impossible to find them. Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go. ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Dave and Dujanovic.
What our listeners need to know is what's going on behind the scenes. We hold weekly meetings on how to do our jobs as talk show hosts, as journalists, better than we did them yesterday.
There's some very conservative voices. There's some very liberal voices. But there is space for both, and we're not at each other's throats. We're not yelling at each other. We're having a discussion.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. Greg, as you know, in that last segment, we were talking about election-related bills up on the Hill for Utah's legislative general session. Begins Tuesday next week. This segment, we're going to chat with another elected official. This is one of my, I need to set this up, it's one of my favorite state senators, and I'm chuckling because we always have a good time up there. Senator Dan McKay, he's always good in hearing, he's always the first to kind of lighten the mood, make a good joke, a well-timed joke, and all. I'm not going to put you on the spot to make you do that, but Senator Dan McKay, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Rusty. I'm now feeling a lot of pressure. I'm not going to have any jokes right now, so just.
I did kind of back you into the corner on the joke part, but we'll move on.
Right.
Yes, we did bring you on to talk about what looks to be a fairly substantial bill having to do with elections, and I believe this one talking more about elections and fundraising. I believe it is numbered. I just lost the number.
Yeah, Senate Bill 18.
18. Thank you. Tell listeners about what this bill does.
So the interim the interim government ops committee, they heard, reviewed, talked about this issue. It's on fundraising during federal elections when the person is a state office holder, and they passed it out unanimously as a committee bill. Basically, what they're trying to solve is if a person is a state officer and they're running for federal office, so for Congress or heaven forbid, president or whatever. There's a prohibition on state officers fundraising during the legislative session. And it's actually how I got into office. The representative who was in the Utah House of Representatives at the time had to resign in the end of December because as they realized that there was this prohibition on state lawmakers or state officers fundraising during the legislative session, he was like, what am I supposed to do? His opponents, they weren't in the legislature, so they were able to fundraise, and he was hamstrung by this requirement. And there's actually a gray area here because according to federal law, which does control federal campaigns, a state lawmaker serving in office would be able to fundraise for a federal office. But it's always a sticky situation for candidates to be in this, this gray area. Should they litigate over it? Should the lieutenant governor sue them over, whether or not they should be raising money? All of those things create a big mess. And so the idea was, can we deal with this loophole as we deal with federal elections? And that's just for federal office, not for state offices, but for federal office.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Senator McKay. It's limited to raising money for federal office while you're sitting as a state official in the legislative session. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And it's important, Greg, for people to realize federal races and state races are very different, okay? Federal races, they only allow individual donors, no direct corporate donations. There are contribution limits based on, which cycle. There's a lot of transparency at the FEC.gov website where, they've got to, be out there and report their expenses and their fundraising. And there's, for other people running for office, there's no prohibition versus at state offices. You're allowed individual and corporate donors. There's no contribution limits. The transparency measures at transparency.utah.gov are, equally transparent as the FEC website. But there is this prohibition and this gray area for candidates. And I think the differences in the types of donors and the types of issues that federally people are dealing with is different enough in my experience that it's worth at least asking the question, should we make this exception instead of making lawmakers that decide to run for federal office, instead of making them resign early to avoid this problem, could we deal with this differently? And that's it.
Greg, Senator McKay brings up a good point. Federal fundraising is a different ballgame. It is like pulling teeth. It is not, as much as people think, these folks just go run for office, they wave a magic wand and everybody just shows up and showers them with money. That is so far from the truth. Everybody is limited per person, per cycle, no corporate money at all. It's got to be individuals. It is under a very, very tight microscope. It is not easy. And so having a 45-day period where one individual in the race cannot do a thing and the others get a head start is, in my mind, unfair. A federal race is totally different, as Senator McKay said. You're there doing, a state business, which is a different issue. You should not be hamstrung. And I think this is a great idea.
And, the other thing to consider, Rusty, is that federal elections themselves are fast and furious, right? And when people get to Congress, if you've never asked your congressman what a day in the life of being a congressman is like, it's very eye-opening. And it's one of the reasons why when I've looked at federal office in the past, I don't know. It hasn't been that attractive thus far. But if we believe that the state legislature and that legislative experience could be a good training ground for someone to have, be in federal office, then maybe this is a great way to, make it so they don't feel like they have to step down. And state officers frequently, if they're running for Congress and they happen to be on the same election cycle as that office that's been up, like, for example, a member of the Utah House of Representatives or the Senate's up every 4 years, there's a chance that they're giving up their state office because they can't file to run for two offices at the same time. They're giving up that state office, and therefore the transparency or, the concerns about conflicts would be short-lived.
Senator McKay, is there much of an appetite on the Hill? And this is a little bit off, a little bit of a tweak for what we're talking about. But I say this as a person who's run for state office 3 times, and I hated it. I just hate fundraising, and I know that's sort of biased on my own part. But is there any talk about amendments to fundraising on the state and local level? Is that something, because it seems like it's pretty broad, pretty wide open what a person could do in terms of running for state office?
Yeah, there are conversations about this every year. We deal with state election issues all the time, and including fundraising and trying to find ways to make it more transparent. I mean, we did this 2 years ago where we basically took and classified each expense so that it was more clear to people running for office what was permitted and what wasn't as an expenditure. And so we've made refinements to improve transparency. As far as caps and those kinds of things, they just haven't ever been that popular. And I think that comes down to, they're just people that, for one reason or another, just feel like it's not needed at the state level. And there are probably arguments on both sides to be had, and we may see that at some point. But for the most part, the average House race in the state of Utah raises something like $4,000, and the average Senate race is like $20,000. The cost to run some of those races are pretty inexpensive because of the size of the districts as well. So there hasn't been a major push because we don't see egregious problems. On the other hand, you start looking at other states around the country, and it's not hard for it's pretty common for there to be $1 million races in Utah or in their state Senate and House races. And I'm really grateful that we haven't seen that type of escalation in costs in Utah for running for election yet.
It's interesting. I was talking to some colleagues in my line of work in California. Greg, that he's right. You're talking about state legislative races that'll run $3 or $4 million, which that's a whole nother.
It doesn't
ballgame.
even make sense.
Yeah,
right.
it's hard to believe here, but that's just in a state obviously not very far away in California. Let me just deviate a little bit more, Senator. You are chair of Senate Revenue and Taxation. Any priorities that you want to talk about coming out as far as taxation goes from the Senate in this case?
Well, the fun conversation is always we've got $200 million that we've set aside for income tax relief, and some want to see a reduction of Social Security tax. Some would like to see an overall reduction of the rate. My argument has been, if you go back and look at wealth variables, the wealth variables over the last 10 years for people over the age of 65, so collecting Social Security, that wealth variable has doubled for people over the age of 65. People under the age of 65, it has been cut by a third. So I have concerns about creating another tax loophole or another tax incentive or credit for people who are already significantly their assets are improving. And one thing to plug in there is we already exempt Social Security income if your combined income is less than $75,000. You already aren't paying income tax on that. And so in order for us to exempt Social Security tax more, we would make teachers, policemen, and firemen be paying for a tax credit for people over the age of 65 that are already making more than them.
All
I
right.
don't like it.
Thank you, Senator McKay. Always a joy to have you on. Thanks for joining the show today. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. Good afternoon. I'm Maria Chaleos. KSL's top story. About 48 members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have lost their homes so far in the Southern California fires. The church made the announcement this morning saying they are assisting those who have been impacted in the short and the long term. In addition to the homes already lost, another 750 members have been evacuated. But thankfully, the church's meeting houses have survived the fires so far and have been used as staging areas, shelter, and worship services of all faiths as needed. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden is commenting on a ceasefire deal that has been reached between Israel and Hamas. The deal includes the release of hostages, prisoners, and the opening of borders for aid.
President Biden said while this has been what he calls a time of, quote, real turmoil in the Middle East, he believes there are opportunities for a new future where American allies are strong and enemies are weak.
In Lebanon, there's an opportunity for a future, free from the grip of Hezbollah. In Syria, a future free from the tyranny of Assad. And for the Palestinian people, a credible pathway to a state of their own.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Taking a look at the markets, the Dow ending the day up by 704 points. That's about 1.5%, sitting at 43,221. Coming up, we'll take a look at your commute and check the forecast. We'll see when the next chance of showers is, but enjoy the nice warm temperatures.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
You bought a house, or maybe you're building one, but it just isn't feeling like home. Not yet.
AMC Building Materials has this undeniable knack for transforming a house into a home, your home. How do they do that? They combine years of exceptional kitchen and bath creations with your ideas. In fact, customer satisfaction is their #1 priority. You know what you want. You know it's not going to be cookie cutter. And this is exactly where AMC shines. AMC delivers exceptional quality, bold-style kitchen and bath designs, along with their exceptional value and a timeline you'll love. Most projects are complete by the elite AMC professional installers in under 10 days. Immerse yourself in the beauty, function, and feel in person at the AMC Building Materials showroom in Salt Lake City. Get directions and schedule your free estimate at amckitchenslc.org. AMC Building Materials, transforming your house into a home. amckitchenslc.org.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for less. And for a limited time, new customers receive their second month free when they sign up and use promo code SECONDFREE by January 26th. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
No two people learn the exact same way. So how did Babbel become the award-winning language learning app? We thought of you, all of you. Take Sierra. As a visual learner, she uses Babbel's wordplay videos.
Today I'll share a quick lesson on shopping in French.
Merci beaucoup. Keith is a be in the room with real people kind of learner, so he loves the live online classes with our language experts.
Okay, class. Vos está pronto.
Estamos prontos.
However you learn, Babbel makes it easy. Try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Traffic and weather together. It's brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. What's happening, Ricky?
Just cleared a crash that we had in Midvale, southbound I-15 as you're approaching 7200 south at the exit ramp to the right, and the clearing of an accident 3rd south and 10th west. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced health care in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
A little bit warmer temperatures over the next few days. Today's high 39. The temperature is close to 40 or above 40 degrees for the next few days, dropping down into the 30s for the weekend. 30% chance of showers on Saturday. Right now, 37 degrees. I'm Maria Chaleos from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
You're back with us for the second hour of Inside Sources. I'm Greg Skordas alongside Rusty Cannon, and we've been talking about Utah's recent elections and changes that the legislature is considering with respect to future elections. But the Sutherland Institute recently did a poll, and this is really interesting, Rusty. 993 Utah registered voters completed a survey online, and this was during the election cycle. So it started October 26th, went through November 20th, and 74%, 3/4 of Utahns believe that the person overseeing elections should be appointed by elected officials.
Or no, should be elected by voters. 74% elected by voters.
I'm sorry, I looked at it exactly wrong. It should be elected by the voters. Yes. 3/4 think that person should be elected. In other words, That would be a change. That would be a change because currently Lieutenant Governor oversees elections, right?
Well, correct. I think the point of the survey. So there was some back and forth during this election cycle with the write-in candidate and a lot of others on that side wanting to, or lodging complaints, so to speak, about the lieutenant governor who is on the ballot being one that oversees elections. And the point, that's just the way that Utah's had it for quite some time. And so the survey getting it, okay, well, should we then just say the person overseeing elections should be appointed by elected officials? And only 1 out of 4 essentially support that. But 3 out of 4, according to the survey, still support the person overseeing elections should be elected by voters. So the current status, I guess you'd put it, now I guess the survey didn't necessarily ask if it should be the LG, but the lieutenant governor, because for those that don't know, the lieutenant governor is who oversees the
Okay,
elections.
I read it a little differently, but you make more sense. I sort of thought of it as an independent elected official, although I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah,
Secretary
I'm
of
not
State
sure.
or something.
Yeah.
I think that's a nickname for the lieutenant governor now. But should we have a special elected person? I see. What it's saying is the person overseeing the election should be elected by the voters, and that's the way it currently works.
Yeah, and you could have, as it mentions in the study, in fact, I know Idaho has this, our neighborhood to the north, they elect what is called a Secretary of State, and they are the election official there. There's something like that. There are other formats that you could do, but it's the same thing. They're on the ballot. And so it's they're overseeing elections. It doesn't necessarily get rid of the conflict, but
we have this discussion all the time when it relates to even the county officials.
Oh yeah,
and if you're the county elections clerk and you're on the ballot and you're printing the ballots, and sometimes
let's make my name look a little bit nicer.
Printed by, and sometimes I'll say this is brought to you by your county clerk.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're on the ballot. I know that's been a little bit of source of contention.
But on the flip side, if you appoint them, you could make an argument that could have just as much corruption embedded, right? Meaning that if someone is appointed, well then, but they're appointed by someone and they could get fired by them, so they're beholden to them. I don't know if there's really a great way out of that.
What are we learning from these last 3 segments about Utah's elections? I mean, do you think that the message here is we're doing it right generally?
I think, in my opinion, yes. I think the survey, and we'll talk about some more details of it, the vast majority of Utah voters feel like we have our system, pretty well set up. Are there things we can tweak to make it better? Sure. Like we said in the previous segment with Representative Burton, maybe we make a small change to mail-in ballots, that instead of mailing it in and the whole postmark, post date, all that stuff, you then take your ballot in and show ID. And so that actually was talked about in the survey as well.
That was actually the top.
Yeah, that was the most popular one.
Most popular change would be to require photo ID as opposed to just a signature when voting by a mail-in ballot, which I think would defeat the mail-in purpose a little bit.
Well, I think the idea is that it would be mail going out, meaning to you, but then you need to go turn it in yourself. So you're not mailing it in. So maybe we're using I'm saying where it comes to our mailboxes, we get the ballot, you can research it all, but it is up to me to then take it in. And according to this survey, requiring photo ID when you turn back in your ballot that has been mailed to you is very popular.
Rather than just drop it in the mail.
Exactly. 51 to 20. So a plus 31 on a net scale, according to this. I should say 51% of those surveyed said this would make elections more secure, in my opinion. And that was the highest one. The next highest one that these voters were asked, hey, would this make elections more secure? The second one that was the highest, require that mail-in ballots be received, not just postmarked, by Election Day to be counted.
And that was a real controversy.
That was a huge
too,
controversy.
Because of the Iron and Washington County voters whose ballots went through Las Vegas and weren't processed as quickly as some post offices might have here locally, and so they may not have been counted because of a day or two delay. Maybe, and I think the answer has always been, if you talk to the elections clerks, well, just mail your ballot a day or two earlier. This seems to be people somewhat in agreement to that. Like, hey, the ballots ought to be received, not just postmarked by Election Day to be counted.
Yeah, because that's still a personal responsibility issue. Which was also the case for mailing it and getting it postmarked in time. The problem with that is you're then putting one step of it in the hands of the U.S. Postal Service, And, unfortunately, there were some that were postmarked later because of the issue we talked about, and so it wasn't the person's fault. However, I'm of the firm opinion it was their fault that they mailed it that late, right? I'm not saying they did it wrong. Right. They certainly could, but we all get told over and over as these ballots go out, please mail them in, mail them in, mail them in. We all know when there's a deadline, and there has to be a deadline. But this method that it looks like would be quite popular would just say, hey, listen, it doesn't matter about the postmark. They have to receive your ballot by Election Day. So whatever you got to do, you do it to get in. And this, according to the survey, would make everyone feel more confident about the election being, having integrity.
And another thing that really would increase voter confidence in the election results, and this one seems to be almost impossible, is if we know the election results by the end of Election Day. That one would net confidence plus 18 over those who didn't think so. So that's another one that's pretty high. But, with mail-in ballots coming in, with overseas ballots, with people who are serving the military or serving their church or doing whatever, you're not necessarily getting them. But I know it was frustrating, and I had to feel sorry for Celeste Malloy and others who were just waiting and waiting and waiting. We had even a county commission race that went on and on. I don't know if there's a cure to that, but yeah, I mean, obviously you have greater sense of integrity if we're all watching the news at night and seeing the election results. But yeah. I think that's almost an impossibility.
Yeah, it's a little bit counterintuitive. I mean, if I think about it a little bit more, yeah, we'd all love quick results, but if they're too quick, you're like, are you sure you got that right? Yeah. And then, and also in haste, maybe doing things wrong. And as we know, and you certainly know this having run for office, even after Election Day, there are ballots that need to be cured where something was marked wrong or whatever. And these are very marginal issues. It's usually not going to move an election. However, we saw this even in this last election. Now they're slipping my mind, but even some in Utah. Well, certainly the Celeste Malloy election,
right?
But that was the primary though. But
right,
primary
yes.
general, where every single vote counts, and we want to make sure we get that right. So. Interesting.
Right. And one of the things that was the least popular that voters didn't think would give them a great deal of confidence was eliminate early voting and require voters to cast their ballots only on Election Day. People were not keen on that idea.
Yeah, they don't think it makes it any better.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to agree with that. This is an interesting poll. I don't know whether our legislature is going to take a look at it in terms of what they're doing right now when they're talking about election and what's happening, but it certainly gives us an idea of what Utahns are thinking about, what Utahns find. It gives them some level of confidence and some not. But, yeah, I think we're doing a good job in Utah, and I think that we've learned that very well. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about a bill dealing with school safety. And that's something, Rusty, that's really big on everybody's mind right now in light of what's happening around the country. Stay with us.
Join the smartest conversation in Utah, the team of analysts and political advisors that make up Inside Sources. Get unfiltered analysis of the new administration, the president's cabinet, and Utah's upcoming legislative session. Inside Sources, weekdays from 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
Have you heard about the huge clearance sale at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo through the 21st? Amazing bargains on trade-ins, classroom, and demo machines that come with warranties.
Save 50% or more with a 2-year guarantee and free classes on these previously loved machines.
The Bernina 735 is discounted and includes thousands of dollars of free accessories while supplies last.
Save hundreds to thousands of dollars on the Bernina 435, 535, and 735 machines. Ask about our 0% interest financing.
Come see the Bernina 990, the most amazing revolutionary sewing machine in the world.
Specially priced and receive over $2,000 worth of free Bernina accessories. 25% off Bernina walking feet. And we have a great price and limited supply of the Bernina 770 Kaffe machine.
It's time to buy a better machine and get a Bernina.
Don't miss this January clearance sale.
Dave's Bernina, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Hi, this is Julie. Come chill with us in Logan where we do winter right. Okay, this is super cool, and I mean that literally. Bring your binoculars and bundle up. Take a horse-drawn sleigh ride through a herd of 600 elk at Hardware Ranch. Get up close to these majestic animals on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We're also home to Beaver Mountain and Cherry Peak ski resorts where you can ski, snowboard, or go tubing on a 500-foot hill. The best part is they have a magic carpet that drags your carcass to the top of the hill so you don't even have to. Need more adrenaline? Rent snowmobiles at Beaver Creek Lodge to explore the beautiful mountains. Miles of powder and groomed trails too. For more frosty fun, try indoor ice skating. It doesn't matter how coordinated you are or aren't. This totally cracks me up. You can rent skates and helmets and even a walker. Perfect! Or just cozy up to the fireplace at a historic bed and breakfast or comfortable hotel. Enjoy live concerts and theater performances and delicious dining options. More info at explorelogan.com/winter. That's explorelogan.com/winter. Logan, we're cool like that.
Our military faces a crisis. Recruitment down. Morale weak. Our leaders more focused on going woke than killing terrorists and defending America. President Trump nominated Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense to change things. Hegseth isn't an insider or a swamp dweller. He's a decorated veteran of the United States Army who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and he's exactly who we need leading the Department of Defense. Hegseth will ban woke nonsense from our armed forces, strengthen our military, and make our soldiers proud to serve. Call your United States Senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them stand with Trump. Confirm Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. Again, call your senator at 202-224-3121. Tell them to vote to confirm Pete Hegseth and make our military great again. Paid for by American Leadership PAC.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
I'm Dave Cawley, investigative journalist and host of the podcast Cold. Don't miss Cold's new Season 3, where I look into the unsolved disappearance of Cherie Warren, a woman last seen leaving her job at a Salt Lake City office in 1985. Police cast suspicion on Cherie's estranged husband and boyfriend, but never made any arrests or recovered Cherie's remains. Find Cold Season 3, The Search for Cherie, anywhere you get your podcasts.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. Greg, as you know, everyone wants schools to be safe. That's a given, obviously, but the question is how can elected officials go about making schools safer? So one representative I know has worked very hard on this issue, State Representative Ryan Wilcox. He's introducing a bill that will address school safety. It's a fairly lengthy bill, and I'm glad he is joining us today to talk more about it. Representative Wilcox, thanks for joining the show. Oh, he's not on yet. Okay. So, Greg, let's talk about this.
You know what? I was, when we were talking about this bill, I asked our producer to give me a copy of it. And he's like, it's 63 pages long. And what's interesting about it, though, if I'm looking at it, it says money appropriated for this bill, none. So you have to think, because if they're beefing up security or they're putting other like law enforcement or doing other things, you would have expected there to be a significant note to this.
Correct. But it looks like, as you now, and we can talk about the details of the bill, it does quite a few things. Number one, it's going to modify some communication device requirements for new construction to post-completion determination. So it's going to go after communication devices that are used, obviously, in emergency situations and amending building standards and doing a lot of things. And now we will have working on the bill with a State Representative Wilcox. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you.
You
Good
bet.
to be here.
I appreciate you keeping us on our toes. So we were talking about House Bill 8. Did I get the number wrong? 40. House Bill 40, having to do with school safety. We know this is a hot topic. It looks like this bill does quite a few different things. Tell us a little bit about what this bill is looking to do.
Yeah, this is probably, we were talking about this the other day, it's probably the 10th bill in the last 3 years dealing with school safety. So really, this bill reflects a lot of the work of the School Security Task Force over the last year since the session ended. There's still more coming. There'll still be some more changes, obviously, as we go through the session. But even that you'll see probably on Friday when we have the next task force meeting, it'll be good.
So talk to us about some of the provisions in this bill. Rusty started going through them, talking about new construction, building standards, that type of thing. What is the? I know the intent of the bill is to decrease school violence and make schools safer, but what are some of the nuts and bolts to this?
Yeah, the building standards were always a part of that conversation. In fact, we met with all the major architecture firms that design schools for Utah to help to understand, what they were doing, how we got to where we are. And, it really just reflects those conversations and then comparing that to what our security experts are telling us. And it's pretty simple. It's most of it's pretty intuitive. It's stuff that, like secure vestibules when you enter and making sure that doors lock when they're supposed to. Making sure that communication systems, and I think I heard that when I first called in the background, are working, are actually communicating. And to that point, one of the reasons why we're going to see some changes at the last minute here, seemingly, is because the state has just finished up their security assessments for each school in the state as of December 31st. They were due then. We were nervous in November for those that were paying attention because we only had 30% completed. But like any good student, everybody turned in their homework at the last minute. And now we know we are collating that information right now. And so we'll have a good idea, a good view of where all of those holes are down to a school level. And that's what's going to give us the information we need to take the next step.
So would this apply to just new construction, or are you also working on measures to shore up, I guess would be the right word, existing structures? Like I think of the schools my kids have gone to. You mentioned secure vestibules. I think those I've obviously seen, and those are working well. Or, is there a vast difference between our current or older buildings and what is being built new?
100% there is. Yeah, you talk about secure vestibules even. That is not uniform across the state. And really, it just depends on what school your kid happens to go to, on how safe that design is. Right? There are some, honestly, we have 18 to 20 different entrances. And almost every time we do an assessment, we find doors propped open, for example. So, yeah, there's a lot to do in that. It will apply across the board. Of course, we're dealing with timelines and budgets, and our state security chief, Chief Pennington, is working with his team to help schools to get there. It's not like we're going to go in and shut down schools right away. But we are going to assess ourselves, see how we're doing. And now that we have those assessments completed, we're going to have the information we need to know, what we need to get there.
Representative Wilcox, you've done some work with the School Security Task Force. Is some of this legislation the result of what you've been learning with that group?
Yeah, all of it is. Yeah, this bill reflects the work of the task force for the past year. Yep.
So, so going forward, do you get pushback at all from those that build the buildings or those that educate, and to where safety concerns push up against, I'm trying to think of the right word, flow of the day, I guess, or the education? Is there any friction there, or is everybody on the same page?
No, everybody's, this is, we're talking major cultural change. This is the third year that we've been running these. We really started after the Uvalde disaster down in Texas, trying to understand, after all the questions that we received from parents across the state, where are we? We started asking those questions too. And the answer, I think I referenced a minute ago, is it depends on where your kid happens to be, on if that superintendent, that district, that principal happened to take it seriously or not, whether they were following the existing guidelines. And then we found that a lot of the guidelines that we had from the state were just wrong. And we didn't require that radios, emergency radios should work in the schools, but we did in businesses. For example, we had an exemption for the repeaters. So that's part of this too, is finding out exactly where we need those radio enhancers so that when the firefighter shows up to save somebody at school, they can actually get the support they need. So, yeah, there's friction for sure. And more often than not, the principals, the teachers, they're very appreciative that we're looking at this stuff. They don't want to have those worst days either.
Representative, at the outset of this, you mentioned that this is the 10th bill, I think you said, in the last 3 years. Are there others in the works? Are there other ideas or other concepts that you're still working on that might be part of future bills or even future bills just even in this session?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there will be. The task force itself, we extended for 2 years last session, recognizing that this is an ongoing long-term issue that we're working on. There will be follow-up as we go, and I would expect that, it's not scripture. You can change whatever you need to as you learn each year. We've made an intentional effort to study, and I've been down to Georgia, I've been to Texas, I've been to Florida, walking through the halls of those schools where these disasters took place. I've been to Nashville, and each time we go have those hard conversations with the superintendent here at Appalachia High in Georgia here in December, it was rather sobering, but we've come up with pieces that we know will help, and frankly, some of it's really positive. And like the Georgia case, the Alyssa's Law piece that we included in last year's bill, they installed the week before, and that drastically reduced the amount of time and the number of lives lost. So it's both encouraging and sobering to have conversations with these folks, but yeah, my guess is we haven't been to Wisconsin yet. That one's a little fresh. But I'm sure that there are things that we can learn from that too. And hopefully I'm never going to a school in Utah to have those conversations with one of our own.
As we wrap up this segment just in the next 30 seconds, could you share the information you mentioned on all the schools? Is that going to be accessible for people? I can think of parents of saying, well, I want to know if our school is good. Will that be disclosed?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, Safe Schools for Alex, who's, Max Schachter, his boy, is one of the first ones that was killed in Parkland. He's helping us with the dashboard right now, modeled after what he's put together down in Florida. There is a parent portal. They're going to have access to that information. We're going to know now. Some of that's protected, as you can imagine. We don't want to broadcast to those who are seeking to harm our kids. We've had a handful of arrests already this year in that regard. But we don't want to broadcast the things that are security vulnerabilities. At the same time, there will be a way for parents to hold their districts accountable, their schools accountable if they're not following through on basic safety recommendations that we all agree are what should be there. And that's informed by advisory board from throughout education. It's informed by the security experts from around the country and led by the state security chief. They'll be able to see it.
Well, thank you. Representative Wilcox, thanks for joining the show today on Inside Sources. Next on our show, we're going to stick with the topic of schools and education. We're going to shift to higher education. Greg and I are going to talk about some things that Speaker Mike Schultz has spoken about in his priorities for the upcoming legislative session next.
Good afternoon, 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. KSL's top local story this hour. Fire crews are still looking for the cause of a large fire at a strip mall this morning in Kearns. A police officer who responded to help control traffic near 54th South and 48th West was hit by a car.
A vehicle was coming into that area and collided with our officer. The officer was transported in fair condition to a local hospital and is currently being evaluated.
Unified Police Sergeant Amy Ray says the driver who struck the officer stayed on the scene and is cooperating with the investigation. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Fire crews battling the Los Angeles wildfires are hoping to get a break with calmer winds in the coming days.
Using rakes and other tools, urban search and rescue team members move from burned-out house to burned-out house along the iconic Pacific Coast Highway, along beachfront homes with the glistening Pacific Ocean behind them. Once the image of entering Malibu, these beachfront homes are gone. Now searchers looking for human remains. Alex Stone, ABC News, Malibu, California.
On Wall Street, your money at this moment, the Dow is up 703 points today. Coming up, it's warmer weather ahead. We have the KSL forecast on the way next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
If you've ever set New Year's resolutions before, you know how difficult it is to follow through because you have to wait to see the results. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and in honor of your New Year, New You resolutions, Any Hour Services is having our New Year, New System sale. From now until the end of February, Any Hour Services will give you $2,025 off a new furnace and air conditioner. And you don't have to wait to save the money. You get $2,025 off at the time of purchase. The only thing you have to do to qualify for our New Year, New System sale is call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate. When you call, there's no obligation to buy. Just schedule a time to meet that works best for you. Let me say that again. From now until the end of February, when you have Any Hour Services install a new furnace and air conditioner, we'll give you $2,025 off. Call Any Hour Services right now and schedule a free estimate. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now, I'm looking at a live shot of a crash in Little Cottonwood Canyon in the lower portion on SR 210, about 5 to 6 miles from the mouth of the canyon. It is affecting the center and downhill lanes, and we are expecting intermittent delays possible, especially on the downhill side. At the Utah Auto Expo, we have a vehicle for almost everything, and we certainly have a vehicle for your thing. Mountain America Expo Center, the 17th through the 20th, AutoExpoUtah.com for tickets. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
The KSL weather forecast down to 23 degrees overnight, then into the low 40s both Thursday and Friday. No snow. It's 39 in Salt Lake City. I'm Jeff Kaplan from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. A new presidency, new state leaders, and a new legislative session. Utah's top political experts discuss the day's biggest stories. Only on KSL News Radio.
And a new legislative session beginning in what, Rusty? 6 days?
Just a few days.
Tuesday.
I'm losing track of time. It's next Tuesday, so
Yes.
yeah, 6 days.
So we've been talking, and this is Greg Skordas alongside Rusty Cannon, about the legislative session, about what's coming up, some things that they're doing on elections, on school safety. They're also dealing with how we're dealing with higher education. And Speaker Schultz sat down with the KSL Deseret News editorial board to share his thoughts on education. And here's what he said about career and technical education.
In K through 12, we want to invest in more CTE, right? Career technical education. We need to work to get rid of the burdens on our teachers, and try to focus more on the students, and also making sure parents have the opportunities that they need. And I think that combination is something that's really important. I love to get out and talk about how great our public education system is. U.S. World and News magazine just ranked Utah the second best education system in the nation. I think we're number one because they didn't take into account that our education system does it for less on a per student basis than what most other states do.
I said higher education. We're talking about K-12. He talks about career and technical education, maybe having more of a focus on that. I mean, what do you think besides what's obvious, what do you think that he's talking about?
Well, my understanding of CTE is your stuff that is very applicable quickly. If I whether you call it a certificate or, like, I think of some classes that I know have been available to my kids, like welding,
right,
or things like that, to where this is something you can get some technical training and go to work right out of school with it. Those types of things and things that are needed versus, in his opinion, criticism of some of other types of degrees having to do with kind of liberal art programs, and he also talked about that as well.
Do we need every liberal arts program is at all the universities, or as broad as what they are, to the point to where they're only graduating a handful of students out of each university? And we have whole programs set up because of that.
So I believe, if I've understood him correctly, and I've heard him speak on this a few times, the concern is that there are quite a few programs in certain areas where there's just really not a lot of production of graduates, right? But there's a lot of cost that comes along with it, overhead of having those programs, or there's redundancy where I can't think of a degree right now, but let's take some particular liberal arts degree. You can get it here, and here at all these different schools. It's all duplicated. Why is that? Maybe we just reduce it to where one or two of those schools have it instead of duplicative programs that we as taxpayers are funding. So that's the important issue, and we'll get into this as well, is that our higher education system is heavily, heavily subsidized by taxpayers. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year go into this system in support of it. And so that's a lot of the concern. And I think, to answer your question, Greg, that's kind of what he's getting at, one of the things he's getting at.
Yeah, he also offered a proposed solution to the liberal arts program.
What we'd like to do is say, let's collapse some of those programs, especially with technology today, right? We have the ability to collapse those programs. We have 8 great institutions all across the state. Instead of 4 or 6 or all 8 of them offering those same programs that only produce a few graduates a year out of each university, let's collapse them, close those programs, still have a couple universities provide those opportunities for our kids, our students, and our grandkids.
I think that's what he was talking about before, and that's what you mentioned as well, that maybe we don't need to have those programs at every school in every and focus more on what he talked about at the very beginning, which is more career and technical. You know what I mean? Programs that could help people more that way.
Yeah, I think we're sort of walking down the road of where he's going there. One other area that he has highlighted where, and I just learned this recently from him, we are doing very well in Utah with concurrent enrollment, and we have a lot of those programs at Utah's universities. Let's hear what he said about that.
Too often, our higher ed universities are focused on enrollment numbers and money and kids sitting in the classrooms. And that is a prime example. Let's focus on what's best for kids, and if we do that, our higher ed universities will thrive.
Okay, so I had the wrong soundbite there, but it still makes the point I wanted to make. He highlighted in a lot of these speeches that he's given, I believe it's Weber State is number 1 in the country on concurrent enrollment, and I believe UVU is number 2. So we have the top 2 in the nation in concurrent enrollment. And
concurrent high school and college.
Exactly.
Right. So you can start getting college credits in your junior and senior year in high school, so that
Exactly.
when you hit the ground running when you graduate from high school.
Exactly. So there's some benefits. I've had kids that have done this where, and it's been helpful. So by the time you get out of high school, you have X number of credits already taken care of. You got them done at a fraction of the cost as you would. You're talking. I'm using random examples, $50 to $100 to take care of a class that would cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do when you get in the university. So it saves costs, it speeds things up in moving them through. Into that soundbite, he was talking more about concerns about them just being concerned about enrollment and essentially about the money and where we need to get people through the system faster with lower cost and all of that. And the collapsing that he was talking about, I think gets to another concern that a lot of folks have is the money, the cost of tuition. Utah is, as you know this, Greg, dealing with the University of Utah and, in your work and background, our colleges are fairly reasonably priced, I think, context-wise through the country. However,
I think we do a good job in Utah right now of
Yes.
keeping our college costs.
Exactly.
Good.
However, relative, they still have gone, up quite steeply, and even, around the country up a lot. And so I think a lot of his push, I think much to the consternation of some, I see his point, and I agree with him. Higher education spending has ramped significantly in recent years, well, for a long time, but especially in recent years. And I don't think there's anything wrong with shining a light on this and looking for some improvements.
Based on your recent work with Taxpayer Association, do the public have a problem with the amount of taxes that go to higher education? Do people still have concerns about that? Or do you think that Utahns, by and large, feel like we've got a pretty good balance?
My concern was always that the taxpayers of Utah weren't aware of how much money goes into higher education. And if that's what people want to prioritize, that's fine. But what we would find is we would go up to the Hill and work on trying to secure momentum for, let's say, to reduce taxes or reduce spending in some way in the government, but get crowded out by requests from higher education for a lot of brand new buildings. In fact, it's quantified on reports. You can find them on their website at the Taxpayers Association. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone, not recently, but have gone in the last 5 or 10 years to massive new buildings at higher education campuses. And we're talking, $500, $600, $700 million requests in a given year. Hasn't happened for a bit, but that's been an issue. And I think that's part of the conversation is pulling back a lot of that spending and not just the talk about the degrees.
And we've only got a few seconds left, but it also seems, Rusty, in closing, that we are focusing more on the technical, on the trades and whatnot, in terms of post high school than we have in the past. And I think that's a positive thing. It's going to help a lot of young people. When we come back after the break, let's talk about Trump's proposal for not the Internal Revenue Service, the External Revenue Service, and see what he means. We'll be right back.
$182,000. According to CBS News, Americans lose out on an average of $182,000 in Social Security income because they file for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits with a free Social Security analysis from Boss Retirement Solutions. This free analysis pinpoints the optimal time to file for Social Security while considering the impact on your taxes, IRA and 401k withdrawals, and Medicare premiums. If you've saved more than $200,000 and have not filed for Social Security, schedule your free analysis now by calling 801-896-9622. Discover how you could wring every nickel out of your Social Security benefits. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-838-6161. That's 800-838-6161. 800-838-6161.
Mornings can start feeling the same. Wake up, brush teeth, go to work. But with breakfast from Wendy's, it's like, wake up, brush teeth. Baconate with a breakfast Baconator. Roll with the sausage breakfast burrito. Buddy it up with a Honey Buddy. Or get seasoned with seasoned potatoes. And then go to work. Sorry. When you're ready for a fresh wake-up call, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
Do you have any idea how hard your heating system has to work when your old windows let the cold air seep in? Your energy bill is going through the roof. But there's an answer, and it comes from Advanced Window Products. For 38 years, they've been building state-of-the-art insulated windows and frames, and every one of them is built right here in Utah. So let me explain why it's cost-effective to call them for new windows right now. First, you'll see a significant drop in your energy bills, winter and summer, and right now, call Advanced Windows and you'll get $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. Triple-coated, argon-filled and sealed double-pane insulated glass that'll keep out the cold, and custom frames in any style, any color. Advanced Windows offers a 60-month, 0% interest payment plan, and they even offer a plan with no payment, no interest for 24 months. Plus, that $2,500 off right now. Call for a no-pressure consultation, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
Saving for retirement was tough enough for us.
Yes, and navigating markets can be challenging at times.
I understand. That's why at Fisher Investments, we take a disciplined approach with your investments.
Tell us more about that.
We take an active approach to money management, positioning your portfolio for opportunities we see ahead.
So all your clients get the same portfolio?
No, we tailor your portfolio to your individual goals and needs.
What about communication? We don't like being left in the dark.
We check in regularly to keep you informed on the markets and your portfolio.
Which means you'll help us stay on track.
Yes, our goal is your comfortable retirement. And as a fiduciary, we always put your interest first, because we do better when you do better. At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Experience the true value of clean with Zero Res, where your carpets are transformed without harsh chemicals or detergents. Zero Res's patented technology ensures your carpets stay cleaner longer, making it safe for both the kids and pets. Unlike traditional cleaners, Zero Res leaves your carpets dry in hours, not days. Plus, enjoy peace of mind with the Zero Res Gotta Love It guarantee. If you're not satisfied, Zero Res will re-clean for free within 30 days. Right now, get an amazing deal. Have 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $109, and Zero Res will clean a hallway for free when you mention KSL News Radio. But that's not all. Zero Res offers a wide range of cleaning services, from air ducts to upholstery, ensuring every corner of your home shines. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Call today and experience the Zero Res difference. Book your appointment now and let Zero Res bring cleanliness to a whole new level. Call 866-ZERO-RES or go online to ZeroRes.com to schedule your appointment today with Zero Res.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I've been your co-host today, Rusty Cannon, here with Greg Skordas. Greg, we've covered a lot of ground today, state stuff, national stuff, international stuff. We're going to now move back to Washington, D.C. and talk in our last segment about some things that President Trump, incoming President Trump, is proposing as far as policy, and then we'll talk about some of the legislation that you might see come quickly. So, Greg, I know we've talked about it before on the show. Donald Trump loves tariffs. That should not come as a surprise to you.
Right.
and he has proposed something. Tell us what he's proposed recently on that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Rusty, that he's doing so much so soon. That we're learning more and more about what his administration is going to be like. And he hasn't even taken office yet. He takes office on the 20th. But he's talking about creating what he's calling an external revenue agency to deal with his tariffs. And specifically, he's talking about tariffs that he intends to impose and which are already in some respect imposed on Canada, Mexico, and China. And he said that he wants to enact tariffs of 25% on all Canadian and Mexican goods and add 10% tariff to what's currently existing on all Chinese goods, but he needs an agency that can help us collect that, it sounds like.
Yeah, I scratched my head here. This is one where I'm kind of not on board here. As a small government proponent, I've always been just personally over time just hearing anybody come up with another agency that they think of,
especially one who's told us we're going to get away with a lot of these agencies.
It just kind of runs counter to the whole government efficiency thing.
Yeah. Ramaswamy and Elon Musk must be going, hey, wait a minute, Donald, this is not what we had in mind.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little bit confused, but we'll have to wait and see what really comes out of it. So the collecting of tariffs is currently done by CBP, Customs and Border Protection. That's within the Department of Homeland Security. And what happens is the importer of these, not the foreign country or the company that was exporting it, they pay the tax to CBP. So not sure why this new mechanism would be needed, but it'll be interesting to see how it rolls out.
Or even if it adds anything to what's currently in place.
Yeah.
But I think he wants to stress, Rusty, that these tariffs are part of his agenda.
Yes.
And he's coming down and he's going to make those a significant part of what he does right out of the chute.
Yeah, now the next thing we want to talk about, and this is going to be a hot topic very quickly, is the reconciliation bill. We all know there's been the debate, and we've talked about it a lot on our show, one bill or two bills with budget reconciliation. Budget reconciliation will only take 51 votes in the Senate. They have 53 Republicans, so this is the way to go. You can't get 60. So, but there are issues that come with it. It has to be related to the budget, and if we want to do this, you got to move it fairly quickly. So they had a meeting today. It actually started at 1 o'clock on the Hill, where House Republican leadership hosted a meeting talking about the reconciliation package. And then Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has laid out a very aggressive timeline. So what he wants to do is that he wants the chamber to pass, the House, meaning to pass the budget resolution. That's the first step needed by February 27th. That's just 6 weeks from now. So that's all the details on the budget. Then he wants to release the budget resolution and mark it up the week of February 3rd, have a floor vote the week of February 10th, kick it over to the Senate, have them work on it the week of February 17th, and then he wants the House to pass the resolution with any of the Senate changes by February 24th.
What does budget reconciliation mean to you? Maybe it's self-defining, but what do you suppose his end game is?
Well, the end game is to pass what you want to pass with 51 votes, to really boil it down. Now, I know there's more technical explanations as to why it's there, and it's typically, obviously with the words budget reconciliation, you're reconciling the budget. You're figuring out all the numbers. But the magic of it is that you only need 51 votes. This is what the Democrats used to pass their major legislative priorities 2 to 4 years ago. Inflation Reduction Act, all this, all done under reconciliation, because neither party has anywhere near the 60 votes to get past the filibuster. So that's why it's done this way. And so if they can get that done by February 24th, then in their view, GOP members and senators would then spend the month of March, crafting the big bill, then get it to President Trump's desk before Easter.
This is an aggressive timeline.
Very aggressive.
Very aggressive.
Yes, very aggressive. But I'll tell you right now, I believe, and this is my opinion, this is what voters asked for. No dithering, get it done. This is what you've been elected to do. You can stay weekends and nights and all that and work hard and get this done. This is not hard for them to pull off. All of the language and all of that just needs to be hashed out, but it can be done. They just need to get to work. They can't spend 48 hours in D.C. and then fly home. They're going to have to work hard on this, and I think they will. Utah members are all on board with this, and I think they will. And so you get all of that done by April 20th. So you round that all up. This is what House GOP leadership is hoping to do. Pass taxes, border security, and energy policy, according to reports, between now and April 10th when they recess for Easter. So then you get all of that knocked out.
That's not far away.
It's not far at all.
That's a short timeline.
Yeah. Now, in addition, while they do that, and this is where you start to chuckle, they also have to fund the federal government, if we have a standoff on that, potentially pass a debt limit increase. That'll be very controversial, and send perhaps billions of dollars to California to help them rebuild after these once-in-a-generation wildfires. That is all on top of what we just talked about. So there will be many, many things for them to do. They are not going to get bored.
Yeah, and our government could potentially be up against another shutdown on as early as March 14th. I mean, we passed an initiative, a budget proposal. I'm not getting the right words right. Recently, that gave us at least that additional cushion so that Trump didn't have to hit the office without a budget. But he's got to get something in order, and just 58 days away on March 14th.
Yeah. Yeah, and the question now is, will Johnson and Thune, Senate Majority Leader in the Senate, are they going to cross the aisle and ask Democrats to help them pass government funding? Now, we know here in Utah, or any state for that matter, how much pressure members get on not caving on that, meaning, we are not going to increase our debt limit. That's a very hot-button issue on the Republican side. The question is, do they go across the aisle and get votes for that in the Democrat side?
Do they need to?
Well, and then here's the issue, is they might take heat for doing it.
Right.
And Speaker Johnson, he literally, I can't remember the timing, if it's through April or by April, will have a one-seat majority because of some people going into the administration. We've talked about,
you're right.
Where it's not a 3-seat majority. I believe it's going to be down to 1 if it isn't already, where you could have 1 or 2 flies in the ointment and this blows up.
Yeah, and we're also talking about one other thing. A big issue on reconciliation is how Republicans fix the state and local tax deduction. I'm not sure I understand exactly what that is, but
yeah, it's the nickname is SALT, stands for state and local tax. So before the 2017 tax cuts, you could deduct, I believe it was an unlimited amount of state taxes on your federal taxes. So what that unfortunately does is it subsidizes, taxpayers in Utah are subsidizing a state like New York or California that has very high state taxes because they get to all deduct it off their federal, and therefore we're all subsidizing that. And so the pushback for the 2017 bills, you know what, that's wrong. Your states need to lower your taxes or be more responsible, and so we are going to limit that SALT deduction, they call it, state and local tax deduction, cap to $10,000. And that basically gave a massive tax increase to wealthy taxpayers. Who doesn't like that? Democrats and Republicans, let's make that clear, and Republicans in California and New York want that limit gone. And so then you say, going into these negotiations, can we keep the Republicans in New York, and there are some, and there are even some in California, on board where they're going to face pressure at home to get rid of this cap? So that's another fly in the ointment.
Right. And fifth is a reconciliation instruction that House Republican leadership is working on to detail the cuts as a floor instead of a ceiling. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but they want the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee to cut $200 billion, and they say the panel should cut no less than $100 billion. I mean, that's a massive cut.
Yeah, and so where the bargaining is going to get intense is, as they want Democrat votes, they're going to push back on pretty much all of this. But there are some in some purple districts that maybe you could get to cross the aisle. But on the flip side, if you get some hardcore Republicans that aren't going to roll over when Trump asks them to on their principles of voting for an omnibus or a big package or the debt limit, this is going to be very, very interesting to see. I think they'll pull it off, but I can tell you it is going to be fascinating to watch over the next little bit. Well, it's been fun to be with you today.
Wow,
Greg,
a lot going on today.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to today's show. Join Leah Murray and Aaron Ryder tomorrow from 1 to 3 p.m. as they share insights on the upcoming session and give their thoughts on the farewell address from President Biden. That's Inside Sources, only on KSL News Radio.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. It's 41 degrees, KSL's top story. The Senate is grinding away toward votes on the Trump cabinet picks, and Senator Mike Lee is predicting smooth sailing for the Attorney General nominee. Lee questioned Pam Bondi at her confirmation hearing today.
As Attorney General, how will you prevent the weaponization of the Department of Justice against Americans?
Going after parents at a school board meeting has got to stop.
We get more from KSL News Radio's Becky Bruce.
Bondi's hearing was just one of 3 the senator took part in today.
Felt like a ping pong ball. Sometimes that happens, especially at the beginning of an administration where you've got to get it staffed up.
And the senator tells KSL News Radio's Inside Sources he believes Bondi did a great job.
Yeah, she's going to be confirmed.
The senator says he was impressed by her responses to questions in the hearing, but also in their conversation beforehand, where he says he was able to gauge her thoughts on issues like criminal justice reform. Lee says Bondi held her own remarkably well. Becky Bruce, KSL News Radio.
But not everyone in the committee hearing painted such a rosy picture of Bondi. Maria Chaleos is live at the KSL National News Desk.
Jeff, ranking member Democrat Dick Durbin is concerned about Bondi's allegiance to President-elect Trump.
I need to know that you would tell the president no if you're asked to do something that is wrong, illegal, or unconstitutional.
In her opening statement, Bondi said she will work to restore confidence in the DOJ.
The partisanship, the weaponization will be gone. America will have one tier of justice for all.
Democrats also raised questions about Bondi's work as one of Mr. Trump's personal attorneys and her work as a foreign lobbyist. President-elect Trump has repeatedly expressed interest in either buying Greenland from Denmark or taking it by force. During his Senate confirmation hearing, Senator Marco Rubio explained why Greenland would be an important piece of land for the U.S.
One of the most critical parts of the world over the next 50 to 100 years will be whether there's going to be freedom of navigation in the Arctic and what that will mean for global trade and commerce.
Rubio is Trump's pick for Secretary of State. And a preliminary deal has been reached by Hamas and Israel to pause the fighting in Gaza. President Biden says it paves the way for additional negotiations and would permanently end the fighting there.
There was no other way for this war to end than with a hostage deal. And I'm deeply satisfied this day has finally come for the sake of the people of Israel and the families waiting in agony.
Under phase one of the deal, some hostages will be released in Gaza, as well as some Palestinian prisoners being detained in Israel. Live from the KSL National News Desk, I'm Maria Chaleos, KSL News Radio.
So what do you think about Utah's election process? A new report out today shows which policies will give Utahns more confidence. KSL News Radio's Heather Peterson is live with details. Heather?
Jeff, this data is being released